welcome back to my channel. How are you doing? I hope you are doing great. So today I bring this gist for you guys. So we are going to be listening to this guy that was talking about immigrants and Black America. There was a massive react to this video. I'm going to upload this so that it will not be too long, and I'm going to be uploading the part 2 of it because a lot of people was really getting angry of this video. But let me leave you guys to dive into it.
You know, I was thinking something today, and I bet a lot of immigrants laugh at a lot of Black Americans. So imagine this. Imagine you live in India, right? You move your family. It's you, your wife, and you've got 2 kids. You move your family over here and you have nothing once you get here. Or let's say you've got $3,000 to your family's name by the time you get here. By the way, you don't speak English very well at all. Very broken English. You can barely even understand it. Yet you apply for 200-300 jobs, find yourself a job, you start making money. From there, you're working your butt off and you're saving every penny while also helping take care of your family. Your wife is working as well. You both are taking care of the children, obviously. You work your butt off for 10 years, save up enough money, right? Then you start your own business. From this point, as your business started, it struggled for the first year or two, but you had a good savings, and now your business is starting to become profitable. You're starting to make money. Then you kick it into overdrive, you push the business even harder, and now you're making even more money. Now it's about time for your kids to go to college, so you've been saving up for their college fund, and now you look to start sending them to school. Your kids then go to school, they become doctors or lawyers or surgeons. They graduate 2 years after college, after they're done with their schooling, are now making 6 figures a year regularly. You then see people that were born here with every opportunity that you dreamed about having and moved your family across the world from, and they're busy blaming the fact that they're not successful on the things that happened 200-300 years ago to their grandparents, their great-great-great-grandparents, right? I don't understand how immigrants don't look at that and they're not like, oh my God.
A few months ago on this app, I watched a video and the creator made this statement. She said, the African immigrant to white supremacist pipeline is real. And when she said it, I said, oh my God, how dare you? I thought, how dare you suggest that African immigrants hold white supremacist ideologies? But then I just paused, I watched the rest of her video, and I thought for a minute. I thought about some of the narratives that I, as an African immigrant, hear in our community. I thought about some of the anti-Black rhetoric that is so common in our community. And I had to admit that she was correct. And if you look in the comments of that video, the proof is there also. Many African immigrants think that they are better than Black Americans. And we come from our home countries already with this false narrative, with this negative stereotype that Black Americans as a group are lazy, they are on government handouts, they're not taking advantage of the opportunities that America has. We come with these narratives and we come here and we don't bother to challenge them, because if you just sit for a minute and think about some of these comparisons that are being made, you will see that they are stupid, right? They don't make sense. They are not equal comparisons. We don't bother to learn the history of systemic racism in this country. We dig in our heels instead and try to prove that, we're the good Black people. Oh, look at us. We're so educated. We have all these good jobs. And it's frankly embarrassing. If you go to the comments of that video, you will see immigrants from all, let's call it races, right? People of color, basically affirming what this creator is saying, affirming this anti-Black message. And African immigrants are also in there doing the same thing. And it's very ironic because all of us know that in this so-called people of color thing, every other community has very strong anti-Black rhetoric. They have very anti-Black sentiment. And you, a Black African immigrant, you are in there kicking with these people who probably look down on you with the same racism and anti-Blackness that they hold towards Black Americans. Are you not embarrassed? Are you not embarrassed?
Any immigrant who laughs at Black people for not making it is brainwashed by white supremacy. To begin with, the ancestors of African Americans didn't migrate here, they were enslaved and brought here. Since 1619, laws have existed to keep Black people in a certain level of society. However, for immigrants, over time, we got the ability to come here to work and bring our families. Very different paths. And again, any immigrant doesn't see that is brainwashed by white supremacy. Also, I would like to add that you mentioned Indian families. Again, we're all somewhere because of history. Indians have been able to rise so much because they've been allowed to come to this country and work longer than any other immigrant group. And you look at immigrants from like Haiti, Latin America, African countries haven't had that straight path to come here. And let's not forget, once we get here, it's not all roses for us. We have to deal with xenophobia and racism as well. So you see how white supremacy pins us against each other? So we both work hard, but we need to work harder to stop these white people from doing this to us.
Watch his video for full context, but he's basically talking about how immigrants come here with less than nothing. They don't speak the language, they work really hard, and they get money. Whereas people who were born here speak the language, they just with less hurdles to overcome, they don't make as much money. And this is a point that I've been saying for a long ass time, because honestly, it's embarrassing. Who do you think is one of the most successful immigrant groups in America? It's Nigerians. And the reason why it's really funny is because people always want to talk about systemic racism this, systemic racism that. Oh, the system holds black people back, yada yada. Meanwhile, you have Nigerians who come here, not the ones who are already rich, but you have Nigerians who come here, don't have any money, and yet they make something of themselves. I've said it a million times. If you want to succeed more than anything else in life, nothing short of an act of heaven will stop you from doing so in the best goddamn country in the world. So if you find yourself not succeeding, stop looking outside and start looking inside.
This is an example of a bad faith argument made by a bad faith conservative. Why are you gassing us up just to undermine your own people? It's disingenuous and pathetic. Yes, Indian Americans have had success in the US. I'd encourage some of y'all to read history books, because guess who paved the way for us? The Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 would not have been possible without African Americans. We got into this country thanks to y'all. Don't get it fucked up. Thanks to the mobilization of your people. African Americans have a much longer history in this country than we do. Which leads me to my next point. The Indians that live in abject poverty are not the ones immigrating to the US. Indian Americans are also more likely to be well educated, which is why you see them in many technical positions. Comparing the temporary discomfort of moving to a new country with marginalization and brutalization that goes back almost 400 years is just a false equivalency, bro.
When I saw this video, I was wondering who this creator's target audience is and what the intended goal was in filming and ultimately posting this video. And so I went and I watched a couple of his other videos, and he does seem to speak about the shortcomings of the Black community and what might be the source of a lot of our struggles. I got the impression that he is more conservative leaning, which is fine. That's his own prerogative. Black people are not monolithic, and we don't have to all adhere to the same belief systems by any means. But I find it very interesting because I think that this topic is very tired. And the reason why I was curious as to who his target audience was and what his intended goal and purpose was in making this video is because it made me think, okay, is the goal to inspire? Is it to uplift? Is it to encourage? Is it to aid in bettering the community that you are invoking the name of? Or is it using the Black community as a scapegoat of sorts to connect with other communities of people that likely hold very ill-informed, preconceived notions about Black American people? I noticed a wealth of Black immigrants in the comments actually speaking about their success stories and their immigrating to this country. And as someone who is the daughter of a Ghanaian immigrant, I have a lot of respect and admiration for people that have held such a level of resilience and determination in coming to a country that they do not know and managing to thrive amidst such struggles. But I think that it is very harmful and reductive, very reductive. You have to be a very simple-minded person to perpetually engage in these conversations void of any and all context. Now, I know the easy, reductive thing to do is to speak about slavery as though it is some far-off experience that was held, not at all accounting for the legacy that slavery has left, because that would require one to think very critically rather than being apt to assimilate, to think critically rather than being apt to assimilate. And now I know that that is not something that one necessarily wants to do, and you don't have to do that. That is definitely the more challenging route to go by. But again, I think it is harmful to have these conversations void of any and all context. And I want to make something else abundantly clear. My own dad has noted this as well. The non-Black people that have been able to immigrate here have done so in part because of the labor, the upset, and unrest of Indigenous and Black American people in a white supremacist environment. Period.
A Mexican immigrant here who's protected under DACA, and just like my buddy Che said, that is brainwashed white supremacy mentality. And what you have just brought up is the exact type of thinking that continues to separate a lot of minority communities. When Mexicans were crossing the border, they didn't really think about, Black Americans not being able to make it, this, that, the other. They came over here, did the jobs that no Americans would do for a low pay, which is prohibited against the law, but, they're not educated. They worked their butts off. People saw how they worked. They assisted them. They helped them. And then they got educated along the way. And every generation is supposed to get better. So each generation gets smarter. Part 2 in the comments.
I think his content is great. I like his messaging. I'm Indian. I've talked about race and income and culture. However, I just don't think it's as binary as how he made it seem in the video. We all know immigrants hustle and work hard. Indian Americans are the highest earning ethnic group of the country. I think there are other factors that have contributed to it, and let me share some. I'll speak from the Indian perspective because that's what I know best. Indians have a massive support system when they come to the US. My parents, when they came 30-ish years ago, had a network of family, cousins, extended family that helped them get on their feet. Similarly, my mom's sister came from India to the US a few years ago. Her and her family stayed with us for a few years until they got on their feet and got their first apartment, and then they bought a house. 2, Indians and immigrants have a hustle mentality that is unrivaled. They're coming from a place of economic hardship, political instability, and in some cases even war-torn countries. Life is relative, and your internal motivation and ambition is determined based on what you've experienced. And people that come from those types of places have an ambition that is better and is superior than anybody else's. Of course, people from all walks of life can have ambition, whether you're from the US or another developed economy. But on average, if you look at a distribution of people, I would assume that immigrants on average would have more hustle and grit than people that are not from those areas. 3, I think there are invisible, systemic, discriminatory practices that negatively influence some groups more than others. And I think lack of access to credit, financing, the practice of redlining has negatively influenced Black Americans' ability to move upwards socioeconomically. Case in point, look at this appraisal. A Black family was underappraised by hundreds of thousands of dollars, and when a white family was put in place, it was appraised at $750. This is modern day, and you're still seeing it play out today. I worked in mortgage. We saw this. It was pervasive. And imagine what it was like over the last few decades in the 1900s. It was bad. And when you have decades of a certain practice, it limits economic mobility for a particular group of people. So I don't think you can just say immigrants are successful because of these things. They didn't face some of the prejudices that other ethnic groups have faced. There are thousands of variables that influence a group's success, and I've only given 3. But I want to make the point that it's not as black and white as we make it out to seem.
Oh, no. What we're not going to do is perpetuate anti-Blackness on the backs of Indian Americans. A lot of the immigrants that come to America are highly vetted by the American government. A lot of the Indian immigrants are of the wealthy upper classes, which are super educated. So to compare those people to people who have experienced Jim Crow laws and slavery and segregation, just not fair. If you educate yourself about actual Indian social structures, you will know that there is a heavy caste system in India. People in the lower caste systems tend to experience cyclical poverty and discrimination. If you're going to compare apples to apples. Don't compare people who have a significant advantage to people who have a disadvantage. By the way, plenty of Black Americans are doing just fine. Nobody is laughing over here, baby. Black Americans, I love you.
Alright, y'all, so if y'all haven't watched this video, I know it's gonna be hard to watch, but please go watch it, because here's actually the textbook example of how you can be Black and still be anti-Black.
But let's get something clear out the gate. If it wasn't for Black people fighting the way that we fight, or complaining as you say, none of these immigrant groups would have the things that they have today. But you know something that I've never been able to understand? How is it that the group of people who worked for free for centuries somehow gets called lazy? Because immediately after slavery, during Reconstruction, we started getting elected to offices. We started getting into these schools. We started our own businesses. We started all of these things that you're propping up these other groups for doing. And what happened? We had it all taken away from us. But then after they did all of that, they made it to where we couldn't go to schools and get a good education. They made it to where we couldn't get jobs because we're Black. They made it to where we couldn't go and buy homes with good property values and pass on some wealth to our children. Like, do you really think that the majority of Black people are just out here sitting on our asses? But let's go back to this immigrant thing. They're able to get these jobs because of equal opportunity laws that we fought for. They're able to get into these schools because of movements that we started and maintained. But after watching this video and several other videos that you had, I think you one of them people that don't want to be black.
I'm an immigrant. My mother came to this country when I was 7 years old, and I joined her 5 years later when I was 12 years old. And no, all immigrants are not laughing at Black Americans. Because for many of us, our countries are still facing the effects of slavery and colonialism. We understand what it means to have to overcome systemic oppression, even in countries where the majority of people look just like me, even the people in charge. So no, all immigrants are not laughing at Black Americans. We stand with Black Americans.
I don't care about anything saying in that video because it's not intelligent. Black conservatives are literally insane. They're insane because this is what they do all day. They get on social media, post 6, 7 videos a day, pushing false narratives and racial stereotypes. Oh, black people are lazy. They're not professional. They have no discipline. If you truly believe that a lot of black people are unprofessional and lazy in this country, this man Jeff Mead over here has a business of his own. Why don't you provide internship opportunities for young high school students or college students so they can learn the in and outs of a business and maybe even learn about marketing in general? You believe these kids have no discipline? How about you go join a Big Brother or youth program in your local area and you help these kids focus on their education and their extracurriculars outside of school? And if for some reason you're unwilling to donate any time or physical effort on your part, how about you get you and your nearly 200,000 followers to donate to organizations that align with values you believe in, or start one of your own? But you'll never do that because it doesn't benefit you.
Totally transparent with you. Indians don't care. Like when we come here, we're not thinking about other cultures. We're not thinking about what they're going through. We're not thinking about anything else but trying to make it. We are way too busy just surviving. Many of us don't speak English. Now, there's a myth that everybody that comes here is wealthy, is well educated. That's not true at all. I personally know so many people who are not educated, who don't have money, that come here and make it. In fact, I know millionaires and multi-millionaires that came here with almost nothing. In fact, I am one of those people. I had it much easier. My dad came here in the 80s and started working as a taxi driver in New York. So my dad was definitely not uneducated. He was educated. In fact, he has a master's, but of language. Yeah, he did a master's in language of a language called Punjabi. So he spoke a different language. He had a master's in it, which had no value at all in the American economy. But I think it gave him the confidence to come here and try. He left India with almost no money. He had to work on top of some kind of a ship or a tanker that paid him enough money to get to America. Forget about thinking about other cultures and why they're not surviving. Like, these people were busy trying to survive themselves and figure out how are they going to get their next meal? How are they going to make enough money to get their families here? Remember, they can't fail. They've left their families and they're here. They're trying to make it. Failure is not an option is an understatement. Now, my parents made sure that I was in an English medium school in India before I came here. And so I had a much easier adjusting time here. My personal adjustment to America wasn't easy either. There were years where I was like, why are these people thinking this way or talking that way? Being a multimillionaire was never a goal. Are you kidding? Like, that's like a dream that we didn't even know to have. All I knew was work, 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 get ahead, get some money, just work, go study, have good grades, just keep doing that. Because it's culturally ingrained. It's like, it's in the culture, this mentality. Generally speaking, we don't have to motivate ourselves individually. Our culture is sort of pushing us in this one direction, which is go succeed, go get yourself an education, go, go, go. That's what I did. I got myself a CS degree, an MBA. I got myself a career. I became a multimillionaire, learned to invest properly along the way. When I came to America, I was 13. If you asked that 13, 14-year-old, like, hey, where do you see yourself going? I'm telling you, I'm not going anywhere beyond like getting a job. I tried to get a job before I was 16. They wouldn't hire me because it was illegal. People are busy trying to find a reason like, oh, you came here with wealth. The real reason is that our mentality as a culture is different. Change the mentality, you change the outcome.
Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notification. Anytime I upload, you will be notified. Stay blessed and bye-bye.